All right, welcome to the pod. Late last week, Ross Dellenger, first to report that the SEC and Big Ten have formed their own alliance to tackle the persuasive issues in college athletics. Pressures are mounting. That's how Greg Sankey, dear leader of the SEC, said. You can explain the details. It feels to me like they're realize they are nearly out of time to present some kind of plan, and the NCAA's unwieldy nature makes their idea, the likelihood of the NCAA as an entity putting out a plan in a timely manner unlikely. So these guys are just saying someone's got to do it. We're going to do it, which should be nerve-wracking for everybody else, but not necessarily desperate. But what is going on in this, the Big Ten's new alliance, the alliance against the group that they once allianced against?
Yeah, they were very clear to me last week in talking about this, that they would like it not to be referred to as an alliance, but in many ways it is, right? And it's something that probably a lot of people saw coming for a while now, and probably this joint effort between the two leagues didn't get going earlier, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, is because of the leadership, right? Issues. You know, Kevin Warren, the former Big Ten commissioner, and Greg Sankey, I don't think we're on a whole lot of the same pages. And everything really did change last spring when Tony Pettiti came in. As we had in our story last week, one of the first things Pettiti did was take a trip to Birmingham and spend time with Greg Sankey. And then they played golf over the summer, and one thing led to another. Talks here and there at CFP stuff, and all of a sudden they realized, well, we're more alike than any other two leagues. We hold, a lot of the power, authority, money. We should be talking more in a joint way. I think what exacerbated all this, because the way Greg Sankey tells it, is that this really, the plan kind of hatched only about 3 weeks ago for the specific joint effort, and it was after the NCAA convention, which I was at. I think we did some pods maybe while we were there, and Pat was there, and it was clear. I remember Sankey left a meeting, and he just expressed a disappointment in it, but didn't get into specifics. And then last week, he kind of cleared some things up with me when I asked him why now with this. He said he left the meetings in Phoenix having not really accomplished a whole lot, and was asked by multiple administrators, we need the SEC and Big Ten to tell us what to do and what they want. So I think that really got the ball rolling. Okay, let's just get with the Big Ten and let's see what we can do. And everything's been exacerbated by all this stuff going on, right? All these legal entanglements with the transfer policy and NIL and the House case, and trying to create a new model of athlete compensation, and then Charlie Baker's proposal. Like, all of this got to a point where it's piled on top of each other. And I think the SEC and Big Ten thought, this is the time, right? This is the time that we've got to get together. And the first priority will be coming up with a future model that can be in two ways, as we've discussed on the pod quite a bit. It can do two things. The new athlete compensation model that's created can potentially settle the House case, billions of dollars, and be codified in a settlement as the new, athlete compensation format for college athletics. And it can kind of rectify all of these other legal entanglements with the transfer policy and NIL. A lot of that can be settled with a new model. So the focus is coming up with some kind of plan, some kind of format, some kind of new model.
Yeah, I think, we'll see what they come up with and how long it takes to come up with it. And is it actually inclusive of things that are pertinent to the other conferences? Because in a college athletic landscape where nobody trusts each other, and they shouldn't
trust each other. Seeing the two biggest, richest conferences kind of go say, we're going to do our own little deal here, should be cause for significant alarm to everybody else. That, like, is this a step towards we're leaving? Is this a step towards we are going to further distance ourselves from the other power leagues and then, of course, the leagues beyond that? Is this a step towards we don't even want to play in your basketball tournament? There may be some paranoia here, but paranoia is justified. Look what's happened. Look what these two leagues have done to destabilize the landscape. They were the ones that destroyed the Pac-12, that's the Big Ten, and destabilized the Big 12, that's the SEC. And in a landscape where everybody's out for themselves, do we trust them to be out for the greater good? Maybe they are. But if I were the other leagues, I'd be ducking right now. I would be saying, whoa, where is this going to go?
I think that fear is reasonable. I think, it would be, I think they would lose so much in the popularity of college athletics if it was all of a sudden, 30, what is it, 18 and 34 teams?
34
teams.
What
they have?
Mm-hmm.
34 teams. I don't. Could they even prohibit other people from playing? Would that make sense? You can say you're the only two that matter, but there's too much talent, right? There could be good teams outside of those leagues. One way that the NFL is able to say these are the 32 teams is this is an NFL player and anything else isn't, and there's no rival league that can compete. But in college sports, there's so many players, so many athletes in all the sports, but certainly in football, that aren't at those two leagues and won't go to those two leagues. I mean, it would take a while. So look, I'm at the Super Bowl. The two quarterbacks from Texas Tech and Iowa State. Maybe in the past they would have transferred. Like if this was now, maybe they would have transferred to somewhere in or something. But like you can still have a lot of really great talent. And I haven't looked at the roster, but I am sure there's more SEC and Big Ten players than anywhere else. But there's a lot of great players. So there's too much talent to just have 34 teams.
They got to beat up on somebody too. By the way,
they also have to beat up on somebody. Yeah, I've said this a lot. You can't go you can go 2 and whatever 14 or 15 now in the NFL, but you get the number one pick. You don't get that. So they have to play somebody. They have to figure out how to continue to play not just group of 5 or even FCS teams, but certainly the other power, the other major leagues. So I hate being naive and being like, I don't think that they would do it because we've seen some dramatic things, but I don't think they would do it. And I also just don't think it's a business model that works. I think the blowback would be massive, as it should be. I mean, the idea that you would cut out these schools.
I agree it should be, but how many times have we said they would never, and then they did? I mean, there is no Pac-12. That's the biggest one, but other things too. So again, I'm not putting it past them. I agree that there are plenty of common sense reasons why they wouldn't. And Sankey, to me, is one of the ultimate pragmatists. I don't know Pettiti well enough to know that. But still, I mean, there are decisions being made that I cannot believe have been made already. And some of them have been by these people. So
I think what's happening here in this, I know we're probably going to talk about it a little bit, but, the CFP and the basketball tournament, all that stuff. What's happening here to bring these two together as well is I think there's some frustrations, not just with the commissioners, but with the executive council presidents in each league, and certainly with the athletic administrators and athletic directors of their leagues, is there's kind of, quote, little things that have happened the last year, certainly, that are kind of piling up in, honestly, just getting people angry. Right, and frustrated in both leagues. And a great example of it is, I'm here in Dallas for the CFP meetings. A great example of it exists in the CFP room, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a little later. But it's these little things that pile up, and it's just another straw on top of the camel's back. And eventually, I feel like we're really close to a breaking point. It's not just with the CFP, but it's with the NCAA too, and it's just these little things piling up.
I think when you're looking at these, I think there's two things, and we talked about it one of the last pods or recently. Like, these lawsuits are going to against the NCAA. The NCAA is almost certainly going to lose them. This federal lawsuit that the attorneys general of Tennessee and Virginia, and I'm sure will be added to, could conceivably end up at the Supreme Court. This, as we said, Brett Kavanaugh and the 9-0 decision last time, but Kavanaugh's concurrent opinion made it very clear: don't come back here. You're going to get slammed. And so something's got to give there. I don't think there's the NCAA for whatever reason. I understand the schools are the NCAA and it's mixed messages and the schools want guardrails and this and that, but at the same time they don't. I just think the brand is just so beaten down. No, they're easy punching bag. Nobody wants to listen to them. I think you look at Tennessee, whether the Tennessee and the collective were very organized in hitting back at the NCAA, saying, "Look, whatever, we didn't break any rules, even if these rules are stupid, they're out of date, and all that." And I don't disagree with them. I don't know whether they did or didn't break any rules, but at this point, what are we doing? We're focusing backwards on stuff instead of forward, and so, and I think it goes like years. Like, I think with like Tennessee, like they're like the day they made them in 2011 or whatever, made them basically fire Bruce Pearl, their basketball coach, who had the program running popular and all that stuff, because he had a cookout and he had a recruit there, Aaron Kraft and his dad. Then he lied about it. And it's like, okay, he did. Yeah, it's by the book. But like, did you have to blow up our whole basketball program? And whether by the letter of the law or whatever you should or shouldn't, it's just sort of like, I'm sick of these people, right? Like, I just think every school's got that case where it's like, yeah, we weren't even doing anything. They just lost their gravitas, if you will, or respect. I don't know if anyone respects them, and I don't know. It's not easy that necessarily happened. It's not all the NCAA's fault, but some of this stuff is just, you go back and go, well, what was that? I don't want to hear from them. And so when you do that, everyone's just like, I don't want to screw the NCAA. That's a hard place for an organization trying to grasp on and saying, no, listen to us. So there's this vacuum. Nobody wants to agree. FCC and the Big Ten are going, we're going to get wiped out by inaction and infighting. Let's start something new. And I think that this is that.
Well, the NCAA mess too, the investigations. Like, on Friday, we had a story from Greg Sankey about his thoughts on the Tennessee investigation. Now, he wouldn't comment specifically about the Tennessee investigation, but just in general, he commented to me about NIL investigations, and he basically said they shouldn't be happening. Which obviously 2 of the 3 public investigations are in his league, we should add. But he basically...
That fact needs to be remembered.
But basically, he said the NCAA should be concerned about kind of fixing the model, so to speak, instead of penalizing those who have maybe violated rules of certainly a very murky time in the college athletic NIL world. And so you kind of saw that. And these are the little things, right, piling up. I think the NCAA's approach to its rules, not just within the last year, but within the last 3 to 5 years, have probably frustrated people in those 2 leagues who would like the NCAA to stop maybe doing 2 things. One, stop fighting against the courts when you continuously lose, and just change your rules, right? Change your rules and drop the amateurism facade. And then lately, I think there has been thoughts from people in those leagues to stop relying on Congress. This is over. You've got to change your rules. And again, Charlie's proposal will change rules. It will. Maybe it doesn't go as far enough as those 2 leagues want, which is, we talked about that on the pod a week or 2 ago when the A5 commissioners were up in D.C. meeting with Charlie Baker about that. about his Project D1 and how maybe it doesn't go far enough. But I think the joint venture between the Big Ten and SEC is a huge signal of, we're tired of dealing with all of you guys. We're stuck in the mud, and we're going to change our own rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it seems like that's the thing. Like this is, to me, a complete signal of a loss of confidence in the NCAA and its machinery. And so that's why we're taking the ball here. Dan, what you were saying earlier, gravitas, respect, I think respect is part of it. Moral high ground is not quite the right word, but a belief that the NCAA had something, that there was some integrity to the rule book. I don't think anybody buys that anymore. Like they lost that. First of all, they lost their ability to enforce the rules with the North Carolina case, and then with the FBI fiasco when Condi Rice talked Know-Nothing Mark Emmert into creating the IARP, which is, a complete disaster. And then coming out of that, I think everybody's like, you know what? We don't have to listen to these people. And so I think it all got away from them then, and it's probably impossible to get it all back, even with new leadership, with Baker now and everything, and trying. And yes, is enforcement fighting the last war instead of the current war? Probably. But they're doing what the membership has been screaming at them to do. So it is a no-win situation for them in that respect. And then, where are they going to go in terms of, like Ross, like you said, settle the lawsuits, figure that out, and start moving where the heck you're going to go. It looks to me like Sankey and Pettiti are going to have just said, get out of the way and let Will start trying to handle this.
Yeah, and then there's the CFP stuff, right? On the field CFP stuff, which is another part of this NCAA mess. But the two kind of intersect, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I just think Tennessee and these other schools that looked and said, hey, maybe there's an opening here because you guys didn't define stuff. We're going to go through it. I just think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of focus. There's much bigger issues than still going on one player here or there. I think Tennessee's acting exactly how they should in this. I just don't care. Nobody cares. The rules are changing so fast that by the time you even adjudicate this, the whole rules could be changed. It's just like, give up, take a break, focus on something else. You got huge problems and you're grinding out bylaws and all this stuff. I think I'm on that. I just think it's a huge waste of time. I'll give you an example. The NCAA files back against the temporary restraining order that would basically allow NILs to do whatever. I have always said, let NILs operate, or the collectives, no rules. I've said it all along. No guardrails are going to work. No guardrails are going to be followed. No guardrails are going to be able to be enforced. And I think that's been 100% accurate. There's nothing wrong with a player going here or there based on the money. It'll sort itself out. Let the market sort itself out. Let's see if this is even an issue. Said that all along. And everyone instead has run the sport down, told everyone it's broken, said everything was terrible, including the NCAA. And it's different. It's definitely different. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's a disaster. I don't think that these players that received money or collectives or made decisions on some of that, you have these big numbers. Oh, it's $2 million, $4 million, whatever. Well, they weren't bidding against no one. One school wasn't bidding against, zero. It wasn't like, hey, we'll give you $50,000. Great. We'll give you $2 million. This is what the kids are worth. I have no problem with it. I have yet to see the competitive problem with it. It's just different. And wasting the last 4 or 5 years trying to put the genie back in and flail about and scream and denigrate the product has not helped at all. And, I'm looking at this filing back against the temporary restraining order that would basically allow collectives to operate without rules, which they basically do now. I mean, we're down to like Florida State had a guy driving a kid, or what was this plane ride? I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing? But here's one of their central arguments. Quote, it's the NCAA. Allowing member institutions and associated groups or individuals to induce prospective student athletes to attend a particular institution by offering NIL compensation. God, they use every big word. Every big word. Would inevitably lead to a greater concentration of talent in a smaller number of member institutions. Can't you just say this the right way? The really good schools. Good Lord. That lawyer got paid by the word.
It's legislating competitive equity, which the NCAA and all the schools have tried to do for years, and it just is blowing up. You can't do it.
But this is saying if you let anybody pay, then only the rich schools will get the recruits. Now, I said at the start that isn't how it's going to be. I thought it would even out the talent level. I've talked to a number of economists, sports economists, regular economists. They thought it would have negligible impact, maybe slightly more parity. I think that so far it's a small sample size, but we're three full years in, or we're in on this. It's more closer to my direction. What it certainly isn't, and what no one with any perspective or professional training has said, is it would lead to a greater concentration of talent in a smaller number of member institutions. We aren't seeing that. On the ground, we are not seeing that. We're seeing the opposite of that. We didn't just have like Alabama sign 15 top 100 recruits, because the talent is spreading out because of the money, and then later because of the portal. So they're still arguing stuff that was suspicious 5 years ago, but in those 5 years have proven not even remotely true. Now, could it swing? I guess, but competitive balance is better than ever. Basketball is like one team, two teams you can count on, Purdue and UConn or something. Everyone else, who knows?
Well, and Purdue has a habit of losing to teams like Fairleigh Dickinson.
Right.
I mean,
1 year after they lost to a 16 seed, I'm coming up with this. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, it's not happening. You're still arguing this. Not only you're fighting the last wars, you're using the same terminology. Like, how would a court, somebody can present better data on this and say, this isn't even true. This is your fear. It's not happening. You can keep saying it's going to happen, but it's not happening. There's no harm to the overall product if one kid goes here, one kid goes there. It's only harm in the products if the kids can't play. It was worse when you banished guys. That would be more harm. The talent is just at a different school, spreads out. Everyone's got a little money. They're not even arguing actual things. So how can I take anything they say seriously?
I mean, football, okay, Cincinnati made the playoff. Washington came out of relatively nowhere and made the playoff from the doomed Pac-12.
TCU.
And then TCU, absolutely, yes. And then, looking at the basketball, I mean, who made the Final Four last year? Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. And Florida Atlantic right now is 18-4 this year, and San Diego State 17-5. New Mexico is good. Dayton is good. Creighton is good. BYU is very good. There's just that argument. I was shocked they put that in the pushback of this, or the response or whatever, just because, again, I think you're fighting against the actual reality, or you're disputing the reality of where things are headed or are going.
I think just football, just looking at football, I think we've discussed this before, but like what the transfer portal and NIL have done for sure is spread out the talent in the top half of the Power Five, maybe all the Power Five, but certainly the top of the Power Five. You feel like you don't have that 3 to 5 teams, like you kind of used to getting all the good recruits. I know Dan has he has reeled off some numbers about that. What it has done, I do think what we're seeing is at the group of 5 level, it's hurt pretty bad. And I think it's because they just don't have the money and the collectives, right, to even compete at all. And you do hear some stories, and you hear them more and more about the best players at some of these G5 teams, getting $300,000 to go up to a Power 5 team, and the collective at the G5 team the player might come back and say, hey, so-and-so SEC school is going to pay me $300,000. So I'm gone unless you can match it. And the group of 5 collective has $300,000 overall total in its collective.
Right.
So that's you're seeing things, the gap widen there. But Dan, one of the things you always say, and I think for the most part you're right, is hey, there's no problem here, right? What's the real big issue? I think administrators would say that the big issue is it is becoming a professional market without professional regulation, right? And that's what contracts and all that, a framework around, and that's what I think this Big Ten SEC advisory panel or whatever they're calling it is going to really study. Is try to figure out a way to take action before the courts take action for you, especially when it comes to employment and stuff like that.
Yeah, if they want to give them contracts and make them employees, that's fine. But this has not been a disaster. It's just different, and yeah, it is. I'm sure we could probably show group of 5 competitiveness is not the same, but really, that's also one of the reasons is the Power 5 until last year scooped up a lot of the top of the group of 5. When we wrote death to the BCS, Boise State, or the Boise State still is, but Utah, TCU, these schools were, who else? There's more. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, they were in Cincinnati, UCF. All these schools were group of 5. Well, now they're in the Power 5, or Power 4, or whatever we're calling it. So they took them up. Houston, and you go, okay. So, tough break for Akron. Are we going to, what are we going to do? Lose the whole sport because we're worried about the Akron collective?
Right. Well, in all those departures,
and Akron
further
gets
weekend.
the drop downs anyway. They get some kid that, didn't work at the school. You can, and you're still playing football. I don't think people go to Akron or Mid-American Conference football because they think their team's going to win the national championship or even compete on a national level.
Right.
Every 20 years you get a team in the Orange Bowl, but other than that, you're playing because it's just Saturday afternoon. You want to go to a game.
Yeah. One of the things that happened in the course of the arms race with facilities is the people on the fringe got talked into trying to keep up, and we got to build a new building, and we got to get this, and we got to do that, and they weren't ever going to keep up. I remember, was it 2008? I think Ball State went undefeated.
Yeah.
And then they lost Brady Hope, and it's like, we got to build a new building. This is our chance. It's like, no, you don't have a chance. You really don't. You had a chance to go 12-0, which was awesome, but you never had a chance to compete with Purdue and Indiana in your own state and Ohio State right across the border. So the number of schools that I think tried to make some sort of aspirational leap of we got to be big time probably hurt themselves with a little bit of being diluted.
If anything, NIL collective, by giving an active dollar to a specific player rather than a passive dollar to a contractor in their town, is more effective at closing that gap.
Yeah.
Because you're not sitting there saying, okay, let's build a $50 million facility and make it as nice as whatever, which wouldn't even be as nice as Ohio State's. But if you actually said, we're going to give $50 million to the players, or $20 million, that's all this is players getting money that was going to contractors. Contractors were deemed okay. Extra staff was deemed okay. More coaches, more support. That was fine.
Right.
Players getting, it's the wild, wild west.
Yep.
Well, Pat, you saw your alma mater, right? Just got a big donation. 62 million to Missouri, and 12 of the 62 million going to basically the NIL fund.
Wow.
Yeah. And 50 going to the stadium. But good for that person for having that much money. But wow.
But that extra 12 to the players?
Yeah.
So what, they got 20%? Is that about right? 20? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and that's
fantastic.
That 12 million, that's about the annual generation of NIL funds for an elite Power 5 school, around 12, in between 10 and 15 million, probably,
Anyway, I don't think that I think they're fighting old cases. They're arguing new lawsuits with old thinking. They're stuck in the mud. They're getting beat around. It's time if the NCAA as an entity wants to have a chance, and these other schools want to use the NCAA, they need to focus everything on trying to survive and keep the things that are important to them, including the NCAA basketball tournament, some kind of broad-based athletic programs, Division II and Division III, and some of this is legislative. Federal legislation should, we said don't make D3 athletes employees, stuff like that. Let's try to do all that. And Ross, their spot in a reasonable spot in a college football playoff going forward. Because if they're going to let some of these schools on petty issues and small short-term thinking issues blow up the football playoff, it's suicidal for these leagues.
Well, that's what's happening right now, right? This is a big meeting right now in Dallas today on Monday, and then it will supposed to bleed into tomorrow, Tuesday as well, with CFP commissioners gathered talking about a lot of things, specifically the future format and the future revenue distribution model beyond 2025. A reminder that there is no playoff exists beyond 2025. No contractually bound playoff and agreement exist because they're in the middle of negotiations to do that with ESPN, according to ESPN, and so that is ongoing. But there are a lot of quote small issues in the CFP room over the last year, and certainly lately in the last few months, that are further pushing the Big Ten and the SEC not only together but out. Right. There's a lot of frustration, and we reported on Sunday night about the proposal out of the Pac-12 or Pac-2 from Kirk Schulz of Washington State. It's supposed to be addressed here in Dallas. It gets kind of complicated, but the gist is right now there's a 12-team playoff that's supposed to start this year. It's supposed to be 6 automatic qualifiers and 6 at-large spots. And with the Pac-12's kind of implosion, and you have one less FBS league, everybody except one league wants to move to a 5+7, 5 automatic qualifiers and 7 at large. But you need unanimity to do that of the 11 commissioners and their corresponding presidents on the CFP board. And, Kirk Schulz right now, as of about a few days ago, was kind of presumably holding out his vote while he presented a proposal to CFP leaders that would guarantee the Pac-12, quote unquote, voting rights and revenue distribution beyond 25. But as many people, and there obviously is pushback to that proposal, pretty significant pushback, as many of those pushing back have told me, nobody has guaranteed anything past 2025, right? There's no contract. There's nothing. So we're not going to guarantee the Pac-12, knowing it may not exist or maybe a 2-team league, anything. So that's certainly something to watch, and certainly a frustration, right, for the top 2 leagues and really the top 4 leagues probably. And then, there's the stuff with SMU and revenue distribution, and there, for the most part, most of the CFP commissioners in the room want to end all Power 5 distribution to schools that elevate from Group of 5 to Power 5. No longer will you get a Power 5 CFP cut if you make a G5 to P5 move. And SMU's the first one to do it since a segment of commissioners decided on that. And right now, there's kind of a stalemate on whether they'll get their Power 5 cut. But it's these kind of little things, right, that I think Greg Sankey, Tony Pettiti, and people in those 2 leagues get frustrated about.
2 things there. The first one on Kirk Schulz basically holding this up. Good for him. Like, what are they supposed to? Are they going to go to him and say, "Hey, Kirk, for the good of the sport, you really need"? Like, oh yeah, how did that work out for us? How did that work out when you guys destroyed our league and left us for dead? I mean, if I were Kirk Schultz, you would have to drag me with a bayonet in my back to make me agree to anything that helps out the leagues that destroyed my league and ruined our athletic future as a high-level department. Maybe they were never that high level, but they at least had access. And by golly, if I were Kirk Schultz, I would be the biggest pain in the neck possible for this. So I don't blame him there. The other thing, Ross, I believe in your story, did you mention like Pettiti kind of blue skying about maybe we should have 16?
That's another, part of this is, in addition to the Kirk talk about the format and 5+7, 6+6, is more talk about the future format given realignment, right? That 12 of the top 15 college football programs are in 2 leagues. Given the realignment recently, that there should be a re-examination of the fact that there are 12 teams and a re-examination of the automatic qualifiers in that format.
Yep, and that's another reason I don't trust them. Because already, before we've even played a 12-team playoff, let's start angling for 16 so our leagues can get more bids. Let's play with 12. Let's see how it works. I think it's going to be great before we get the additional power grab from the SEC and the Big Ten. They're already going to get the most bids. Do we need more? No.
And they get money per bid, per bid, $4 million to each participant and $4 million to each team that makes it to a quarterfinal, $4 more million, and then $6 more million if you advance to the semis and then compete in the championship game per team. That's per team. It goes back to your lead, basically.
All right, we'll be back right after this message. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you sit there and screw Washington State, and now I'd like to see them come to a 5-7. I would like to see the 5-7 plan and a 12-team playoff play out for a long period of time ahead. I would very much like to see this agreement. I would very much like to see the Pac-2 stand down. But as Pat points out, you absolutely destroyed them, and now you need their help. So it's a tough one. But yeah, 5-7 is the way to go. 12 is the way to go. Go for a while. Let's see what we got. Again, we're always trying to let's see what's going to happen before we overreact. But hopefully something comes up of it. But I don't blame Washington State from saying, I got nothing for you guys. I got nothing. Why am I even here talking to you? I'm going to just be a thorn in your side. And yeah, if you blow it up, you're going to kick us out anyway. So what's the difference?
Yeah, right.
And all you defectors from the Pac-12, I'm gonna drag you a little bit, especially the ones that went to the Big 12. All right, anything else on that?
No, I don't. Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, we might know a little more how the meetings went. I don't necessarily expect some big decision, which is often the case with this group, which is again more frustrations. When you have a bigger group and coming to a consensus, it's been difficult with this crew. But we'll know more kind of later in the week, probably the next pod about where CFP talks are.
All right, some coaching moves still going on. Jeff Hafley left Boston College to become the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. Chip Kelly, head coach of UCLA, has his name is out there with the Commanders and the Raiders, I believe, as an offensive coordinator. One of the ideas is that college football is so chaotic and difficult right now for these coaches that they just want to bail and no one wants to coach college football anymore and they just go to the NFL. Or maybe these guys just thought this was a better opportunity. I don't know. Pat, your thought on which one is which, or do you have an opinion on that? Maybe it'd be a sliding scale.
Yeah, is this a real alarm bell or is this something else? For now, I would say it's probably something else, but it's a potential trend to monitor. There's a couple commonalities here for Hafley and Chip Kelly. The first and probably most glaring is it's a little bit fortunate they both had their head coaching jobs after this last season. Like they would go into next year absolutely on the hot seat. And so You know, they may be taking a page from the tried and true college basketball coach's page, jump before you get pushed, find another job. And now, yes, it's a little bit easier to say, well, this place is such a mess. I'm going to go. But the other part of it, though, is like when we're discussing the winnowing down of programs that will have the means to do everything they want to do to compete, Boston College is not on that list, right? Like they would be at the lower end of the power conference money strata, and then UCLA is swimming in debt and going into a new conference that's going to be brutal. So I can't discount where those schools sit in the hierarchy as a potential motivator there as well. You know, so it could be three different things going on. It could be, oh, the state of the game is terrible. It could be, oh my gosh, our place in the game is terrible. Or it could be, I'm going to get fired. So whatever the case may be, there's some interesting factors with both of those. And we'll see going forward. Yes, if, next year, 8 more coaches say, man, get me to the NFL in any capacity possible, there might be something more to it.
Yeah, we got a small sample size, I feel like, and a lot of people kind of were leaping when they saw the Hafley news to the conclusion that it was because of, the situation in college athletics. More than anything, as Pat said, it's probably for 2 other reasons. One, his situation there in security as Boston College's head coach, but also 2, as Pat mentioned, Boston College's position in college athletics right now, and within the Power Five, and within the ACC, a league that is starting to, it would appear, break up, slowly and painfully. So there's a lot more reasons out there, I think, than this. Also, read Jeff Hafley's bio for the last decade. Tampa Bay Buccaneers assistant DBs coach, Tampa Bay Buccaneers DBs coach, Cleveland Browns DBs coach, San Francisco 49ers DBs coach, and Ohio State co-defensive coordinator and DBs coach. I mean, this seems like a pro coach, right? In who was in college.
Yeah, got some college experience, 4 years. He's 22 and 26. BC's in a tough spot. One thing, it's not a very big school. I don't know how many kids go there, but it's not a big public school. It has 29 varsity teams.
Wow. That's a lot.
Like, I think Auburn has 16.
Yeah.
I think Texas A&M has 20. I mean, Texas A&M is a much larger, so the simple resources of the university. Now, as I often say, if you've been to some of these schools, particularly Boston College, you walk the campus and you don't go, boy, this place is broke. If only they got a couple bucks around here. Maybe they, it's a beautiful place and everything is pristine and it's a wonderful school. But that's a lot of teams to deal with, and it's a lot of teams without a lot of alums, with proportionally not as many alums, and so you might, and you also have, you've got football, basketball, and hockey, and the hockey, I know, doesn't resonate in a lot of places, but it does at Boston College, and it does in college hockey. And college hockey it has never been better. There's a lot of college sports that have never been better. We talk about volleyball and softball and gymnastics and different things, but hockey has gotten to the point where more and more top, the NHL can draft a guy. Everybody's eligible at 18 years old. You just draft your player, and then they can go to college, or they can go play junior hockey. And for a long time, going up into Canada and playing in the junior leagues, that was the best competition. Now, a Canadian may gun me down for saying this, but there is a heated debate now that college hockey is better than the Canadian junior program. All of these top picks are going to play in college hockey, so it's better than ever. And some of that requires NIL money. And I've said this about other schools, but it's a lot easier for Boston College to get to number 1 in the country, which I believe they are right now, in hockey than it is in the other sports. So if you're an alum and you're like, hey, I want to win a national title, let's just do hockey. Like, Football, my God, an uphill climb this is. Hockey, we can get this done. And so, I think it's just hard for I bet he's going to his top boosters and they're like, yeah, I just bought this kid from Saskatchewan, man. Like, he's went up to Moose Jaw. We're collectiving that guy. He's getting second pick of the Sabres next year, like that. It's a whole, and you're like, man, I'm the football coach. So I think you're going to see that. I think a very tough job at UCLA, very tough job at BC. We'll see. Obviously, I also think it's much harder to be a college football coach now than it was. Absolutely. They also get paid a lot more. But
yes.
Undeniable. When I talk to coaches, they're like, well, this is crazy. My job's nuts. I go, it sure is. All of our jobs are nuts. Industries change.
Yeah, we used to have an off season of some sort.
Yeah.
For college football, and that does not exist any longer.
No. So.
Yeah. Sorry your job's hard. I bet it's good on payday.
Pretty good on payday. There's that. All right. If you recall, we talked about the NCAA giving up on certain cases. Here's one they really shouldn't give up on. If you want to focus on something, focus on this. If you recall, there was the Alabama baseball coach who, what was his first name? It's Bohannon.
Yeah, Brad Bohannon.
Brad Bohannon, the baseball coach. There was a game last April where Alabama was playing at LSU, and there was Pat. Did you both break the story or whatever? There are allegations. You can explain it better.
Did. Yeah.
Set it up better than I am. I'm trying to remember your story, so you tell me.
Yeah. So, all right. Yes. So what happened was this game came under immediate suspicion for suspicious bets, and it got taken off the board, and very quickly it was figured out that there was some major shenanigans going on, and the coach got suspended because this was the absolute dumbest scheme in the history of gambling or crime or whatever the heck you want to call it. I mean, it was so stupid. It was incredible. So Brad Bohannon had fallen in with a guy named Burt Neff from Indiana, who was big, mover shaker kind of guy, glad hander, wheeler dealer in baseball recruiting circles. He had a kid who played at Cincinnati, and he knew a bunch of other kids, and he would kind of try to, be an information guy, like Dan, the kind of guy that we saw 200 of in basketball back in the day, right? Somebody who just kind of ingratiates themselves into the scene, and he's useful. Anyway, he also was a wild gambling addict and had friends who were gambling addicts, and they concocted the scheme with Brad Bohannon, who is almost assuredly a gambling addict, that they were going to bet this game when Alabama's best pitcher had back issues and wasn't going to be able to make the start. And so, Bohannon was totally in on it, and he was communicating to these guys, did you get the bets down? Because I got to go tell LSU who we're going to play that our guy is not starting. So they wanted to get the bets down.
Yeah, let me give you the specifics. So this is the negotiated resolution of the NCAA. Now, this is what the NCAA should be investigating. We don't need coaches having side bets on games.
Yeah.
So
against their own team.
The co-conspirator is in Cincinnati, coincidentally, at a sports book inside the Bengals Great American Ballpark. Okay,
the Reds ballpark.
The Reds. I'm sorry, the Bengals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Reds, which didn't have a game, so there's not even any crowd. So this guy walks into there, April 28, 2023, prior to Alabama's baseball game against LSU. Bohannon sent several electronic messages via Signal messaging app that Bohannon knew was involved in sport. The electronic message indicated the pitcher would not going to go because of the injury. So he said Bohannon provided this information. So he specifically, Bohannon texted, quote, all caps, hammer. Student athlete 1 is out for sure. Let me know when I can tell LSU. Hurry. So he's telling him to go hammer the bet. Then he'd tell LSU. Shortly after receiving the electronic message, this is where it gets good. This guy, not a good criminal. The bettor attempted to place a $100,000 wager on the LSU baseball team at the BetMGM Sportsbook at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Like guys who just walking in off the streets in Cincinnati, throwing $100,000 down on an obscure SEC baseball game.
Mm-hmm. Nothing suspicious there.
If you tried to bet $100,000 on the Chiefs this weekend, you would have all sorts of people going, wait.
Hell yeah.
You don't just bet $100,000 on a rando college baseball game. Red flags. The staff limited the bettor to a $15,000 wager. The bettor then attempted to place additional wagers involving, I can't even believe he got 15 in.
Right.
But the sportsbook staff declined those wagers due to suspicious activity. I mean, just get the hell out of there with your 15. This suspicious activity included the bettor's insistent demeanor to get the bets placed and statements to the sportsbook staff. He was telling the guys at the counter, the bet was, quote, for sure going to win, end quote. And, quote, if only you guys knew what I knew, end quote. The suspicious activity also included the bettor showing the sportsbook staff messages from Bohannon and explaining that the messages were Bohannon informing the bettor that Alabama was scratching its starting pitcher before the game and before Bohannon alerted LSU. This is not a good criminal.
No. You're going to the counter and saying, the fix is in. Let me bet so I can take your money on a game that is fixed.
Look at my text.
Look, this is the Alabama baseball coach. He's telling me that the game's fixed, so you should let me, I can make good money today. And they're like, what? Boss, I have some suspicious activity. Well, what would it be? He just showed me the text.
Yeah. This was the easiest for the great American ballpark casino staff to reject out of hand.
Wouldn't you be more cognizant and subtle, right?
I mean, it's like it's literal insanity. It's got to be,
Yeah.
And he had 3 guys at casinos in Indiana, where Bert Neff is from, all trying to make big bets on the same game. So he was like forwarding the texts, or they were getting them too from Bohannon, and they all tried to bet, and they were all getting rejected. I mean, honest to God, you could have it would have been less suspicious if you walked down the street toward a Chase Bank saying, I'm going to go rob that bank right now. Okay? I'm going to walk in with a gun and a bag, and I'm going to rob them. Just to let you guys know, that's what I'm going to do here. I mean, that would have been, you'd had a better chance of getting away with that than this.
Was it 5-year show cause for
15?
15.
I'm sorry, 15 years. So he can't really, if you hire him, it takes 15 years before he can recruit or actually work. I've got time to go coach something else. So, I mean, we do a lot of not smart criminals.
Yeah, we didn't even have to leave the sports realm for this one.
Zero chill on this dude. Zero chill.
And he made like $500,000 a year as an Alabama baseball coach. He'd risen up to be an SEC head baseball coach, making at least, I think, $500,000 a year. And man,
blew it on
just
this.
Flushed down the toilet over gambling. Clearly, he's got a problem.
There's that. I don't want to even know. I don't even want to know. All right, quickly, it's college basketball's in full swing. Really enjoyed this one. The Oakland University basketball team in Michigan, they're Horizon League. They're competing at the top of the Horizon League. We played Cleveland State the other day. And in an effort to distract the team, I guess earlier, the basketball team had attended a swim meet to support the swimmers, the swim team at OU. And so the men's swim and dive team decided to respond, great school spirit, and they stood behind the basket in Speedos and nothing other than Speedos. And every time Cleveland State got to the free throw line, they pulled out a pair of haircut shears and shaved one of the players' heads in an effort to distract the Cleveland State free throw shooter, which apparently was pretty effective, although I don't know I have the actual stat, but they definitely missed some. You might have the stat, but
I'll get 'em.
Oakland U won the game 83-71 and won 9 out of 10, 10-3 in the Horizon.
Campy.
Greg Campy, his 40th year at the school. Great picture after the basketball team high-fiving now a bunch of, actually there's only like one guy left. There's like two guys didn't get their head shaved. You got to save, what if it goes to overtime, right? Like you got to pull guys out of the stands and stuff. Would this affect your ability to hit free throws, Pat Forde? Could you have hit a free throw with a head shaving going on behind the net?
I don't think I could have. I think this is very effective and should be. You know what? This is where swimmers can actually play to their strength, because there's all kinds of body hair shaving and head shaving that goes on in the sport. There's some places. Yeah, you're freshman.
Yeah,
like if
enough. Yeah.
Well, there's some places that could really be distracting. Really distracting. That is the first thing that came to my mind is, man,
No.
I mean, there could really be some distractions here.
No, we don't need to.
No, you keep the Speedo on, okay? You keep the Speedo on, but you can shave everything else, including the heads. By the way, free throw shooting in that game, Cleveland State was 8 out of 13 for 61%. Oakland, 23 of 23.
Fundamentals,
Wow.
Greg Campy. Greg Campy and the fundamentals.
There you go.
You win the Horizon with fundamentals. Defense, rebounding, free throws. Holy Trinity. It reminds me of the great. Do they? I don't think they still do the curtain of distraction at Arizona State.
I don't think they do, but that was awesome.
They had like a curtain, a little like curtain set up, and then something wild would happen. They'd pull the curtain right as the guy was about to shoot, and it'd be something crazy, including at one point Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
Who was swimming, training there in a Speedo.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how the heck do you shoot a free throw? And it's like, I mean, it's crazy enough as some rando Oakland U guy. But you're like, damn, it's Michael Phelps, man. In a Speedo trying to distract me. It's almost like, it's like an honor to like miss the free throw at that point.
Yeah. No, that's genius.
In fact,
there.
Michael Phelps cares about anything I would have done. I'd be pretty happy.
The fact that he even showed up to watch you shoot your lousy free throws.
Yeah. I don't know. We're getting into the heart of the season on this. So
that's your one more Horizon League fact.
Okay.
The team that's tied for first in the Horizon League, Green Bay, which has been terrible, has a new coach. His name is Sundance Wicks. And he has a son named Skywalker. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sundance and Skywalker. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're getting heated. It was a great weekend of basketball all over the place.
Yeah.
As we predicted on Saturday. And it is a wide open NCAA basketball tournament. Unaware are the NCAA lawyers who say that only the rich will get richer. Everyone else. But in fact, that did not happen. So here we are. All right. We'll be back later in the week. We didn't do our Super Bowl talk, but we'll do it later in the week to prepare for the game. Mention some of these players. Brock Purdy, I mean, there's a decent chance. Greg, what is it? Bohannon level odds that the Ames song will get played.
Oh, yeah. Hooray.
Hammer. If you want to bet, if anyone's taking bets, will the Ames song be played? Any sports books taking this bet on our next episode? I say hammer.
All caps. Hammer.
All caps. And I'll tell LSU later. No. Anyway, appreciate everyone listening, supporting us, continuing to subscribe, and we will talk to you later.